Okay, so here we have a very basic Kontakt setup. As you can see, we have Kontakt loaded up with two instruments, a New York concert ground and a Scarby bass. I have already set up two MIDI outs, so I can actually operate the two instruments separately. I have also configured Kontakt 5 to receive MIDI data from input port 0, so that's all set up. And when you try and operate the two instruments separately, the piano goes to insert number 1, which is mixer track number 1, and when you play the bass, it also goes to insert number 1. Well, that is something you never want to happen, because that means that you cannot properly EQ. And while Kontakt 5 is equipped with several effects that make mixing possible, and it's also equipped with its own very minimalistic mixer panel, that one is not accurate enough, and I find it very hard to work with. So the setting you're going to change within the instrument is actually just this setting here, the output setting, which is now set to ST1, that is stereo output 1. Now in this case I have stereo output 1 and stereo output 2. Well, let's change the Scarby bass to stereo output 2. Now this doesn't really change a lot. This actually only changes the way the audio is routed within the internal mixer of Kontakt, which you can look at when you click on the output button here. So here we have the internal mixer of Kontakt, and this might vary depending on your setup. As it is now, we only have two stereo outputs, and the New York concert ground is going to stereo output 1, and the Scarby bass is going to stereo output 2. Now, this setup doesn't allow for more than two instruments going to two separate tracks, but you can change that. You can actually change that by clicking on Add Channels, changing the quantity of tracks you want. Now I usually put this on 32, so that means I get 32 stereo outputs. Then I click on this list here, click on the first item in the list, make sure this one is checked, and then check both these buttons. This option, delete existing channels before creating new ones, basically means you're committing a full reset. And this one, make this your default configuration, makes it so that every time you load up Kontakt, it uses this configuration. So let's click on OK. Alright, output configuration was saved as default, and as you can see, we now have a lot more tracks at our disposal. And you can also select a lot more tracks from this here menu. There is a problem, however. When you click on the wrapper settings and go to processing, you now still see the two stereo tracks, but the other tracks are unassigned. Now, this is very easily fixed, but it requires you to reload Kontakt. Now what you can do is either reload the entire project, so first close down the project in FL Studio and reload it, but in my case I'm just going to reload Kontakt 5, which basically removes all the instruments I have just set up, but that'll be back in a jiffy. And where did the bass go? There we go. And we're back. And as you can see, we have 32 tracks at our disposal, all linked properly. And what I'm going to do right now is put the Scarby bass on stereo output 2. And what this does, like I said, it makes the New York concert ground send its audio to stereo output 1, and the bass is going to stereo output 2, but it's still going to be it's still going to be set. For some reason it's not working again, and there we are. Oh right, I forgot to change the input port. There we go. Okay, it's still going to insert 1. So now we have all these channels set up, and we have the bass going to stereo output 2 and the piano to stereo output 1. Now we can go into the wrapper settings, back to processing, and now we see that every track we just configured is accounted for. And what we can do now is shift each output to the next, to a different mixer track. So stereo output 1 is the one with the piano. We want that to stay on insert number 1. The second one, stereo output 2, is the bass. Now we want that one to be shifted one track to the right. So we do that by changing the number to 1, which shifts the audio to one track to the right. So there you have it. That is all you need to know. That's all you need to do. As you can see, the piano is still at 1, but the bass is now at insert 2. And you can repeat this for anything, really.